Hello everyone, and once again a very warm welcome to JMeter workshop. My name is Rishil Bhatt, and I'm a QA lead at Nblix, and I have around 10 years of experience in software testing. Okay, so I would like to start my part of this workshop with this beautiful quote from an amazing poem, The Divine Comedy, which was written by an Italian poet and philosopher, Dante Alighieri. So the line is, "The path to paradise begins in hell." So those who have worked with JMeter, they they are very well aware about this notion. They know exactly what this means. And to those who are very new to JMeter, please believe me that this journey you have taken, you will never regret taking on. So with that beautiful and noble thought, let's get started. Okay, so first of all, a quick recap. So far, we have seen what is performance testing, what is JMeter and all its components, and how to record using the JMeter. Okay, now the first step after recording, after you complete your recording with JMeter, is to customize your script, to customize it to make it in a workable format. Because in performance testing, what we do, we generate the load on the application server by mimicking the user journey from the application. So we want our JMeter script as perfect as possible and as real as possible. So that is the bare minimum requirement of doing the performance testing. Okay, so before we start talking about the correlation and what, how and why of it, let's take a step back. Let's go in reverse first and talk about what is HTTP. That is the basic. If we do not understand how the HTTP architecture works, it becomes very difficult to work with performance testing. This is just a tool. You have JMeter load runner. It's not about the tool, it's about the concept itself, right? Okay, so when we say HTTP, so this is the basic architecture of HTTP. You have a client, you have a server, you provide the URL in the browser, you hit the submit, you hit the enter, then the request goes to the server where some processing happens. We will not talk in detail about what happens at the server level, but what server does is server studies the request which is sent by the client. Okay, it checks for the authentication and authorization, and if the request is valid, then server will respond with whatever the content is requested for, and then browser will display all the content in its window where we can see it, right? Now, here the HTTP is a stateless protocol. Now, what do we mean by stateless protocol? That HTTP, so we have a client and we have a HTTP server. So our HTTP server is not required to remember anything. That means that HTTP server will not remember whether the client has visited before or how many times he has visited or he has visited just a few seconds back. So each and every request, they are unique and they are not connected with each other. So that is the stateless nature of the HTTP architecture. Then one question arises here that, for example, if I'm logging in my Amazon account, then how is Amazon server knowing that where I'm going, I'm adding the product. So if I add the product, so the product is added to my card, my account's card, and if I do the purchase, then the purchase order is created for my account. So there is some connection, there has to be some connection, right? So that's where that brings us to the concept of session management. First, we will understand how the session is maintained on the browser, right? Okay. Okay, so we have a client machine, then we have a server. Now let's assume you are on your login page. You are providing username and password, and you are clicking on login button. So the request goes to the server with this username and password. That server checks whether the credential is authentic or not. So if the credential is authentic, then what server will do? Server will respond back to the client with all the necessary details. Along with those details, it will create one session ID, one authentication token. Now that token will be sent back to the client and it will be stored in your browser cookies. Now, next time, whenever the client will do any kind of action, so basically whatever we do on the browser, whether we click a button or submit or refresh or whatever, we send the request to the server. So what happens, all the subsequent requests, they are sent to the server with that session ID, which server has already sent. So that is how your server identifies your session is live or not, right? And that is how the session is managed in your browser. For example, if I am using my Chrome browser to access facebook.com, I'm accessing it, I'm already logged in. Now, if I open the Chrome incognito tab and if I try to hit facebook.com, I will be redirected to the login page. Though there is already a valid session in the same browser, but I will be redirected to the login page. Why? Because your browser incognito tab does not use the cookies which are used by your normal browser tab. So when you open the incognito tab and you type the facebook.com, your server will take it as a new request. It will ask the client that now for this you have to use this new token, and if that token is valid, then you will be served with subsequent request responses. So that is how the session is managed in the browser. Okay, now the beauty of your browser is browser does everything automatically. You are not supposed to go to the network tab and make any changes, right? But JMeter is not that much friendly. So we will remove this browser from this portion and we will add the JMeter. Okay. In JMeter, as Sailesh has already demonstrated, in JMeter, all the requests are unique. They are not connected with each other by default. But whatever your browser is doing automatically, we have to do it. We have to connect our request in JMeter, and that is called the correlation. So by definition, the correlation is the process of capturing and storing the dynamic response from the server and passing it on to the subsequent requests. Why it is necessary? Because if you are not doing it, then your JMeter script is useless. There is no need to use JMeter script if the correlation is not applied. How it is done, we will see that in the live demo. But before we go to the demo, I would like to talk about one more concept, and that is cross-site request forgery, CSRF. Now, this is one of the major vulnerability in terms of the security testing, where an attacker inherits the identity and privilege of the user and tries to perform unwanted actions. So this is one of the major threat in current scenario. Now, to prevent the cross-site request forgery in a modern day applications, in the modern time applications, what server does is with the first request that is sent to the server creates one CSRF token, and that CSRF token is sent to the client in response body as a hidden field. So it is there in your response body. Normally you don't see it when you use the browser. It is not visible for you, but we are using JMeter and we have to use it to make your JMeter script work, right? So it remains hidden in your HTML response, okay? Now we will see how we can identify it and how we can use it to correlate in our JMeter. Right now, first of all, I will open the application. Okay, I will first open the network tab, clear everything, and I will hit this URL, open source demo orange HRMS live. Okay, so I'm redirected to the login page. So basically this is my landing page. So if I go to network tab, I will see that lots of requests are added over here. So someone had asked about the embedded resource option. So this is the option you have in your browser. If I select only XHR, then only the API related thing will be displayed. But right now we want to use all the response, so I am keeping it for all. Okay, now the request, this is the first request we send to the server. Let's check the headers. So in the request header, we can see that this is the URL we typed. So this is the request URL we typed. Okay, and this is the HTML response. This is XML response we have received from the server. Okay, I will copy this response and I will paste it in a notepad. Okay, now I will try to find the CSRF token from this response. Okay, so here it is. So here is one hidden field that is added in the response. The name is CSRF token, and this is the value of that CSRF token, right? Okay, now we go back to our application. Now I try to log in. I click on login button. Okay, so I'm successfully logged in. Now I'll go to the network tab where we will try to find the request with which we did the login. Yeah, this one, validate credential. So this is the request where we are, if we check the form data, I hope you are able to see, if we check the form data, then this is the text username that I have provided. This is the password I have provided. And if you see that in the request parameter in your form data, this CSRF token is passed. So this token is sent to the server, and that is how your server identifies this as a valid request. So if I copy and if I compare it with, let me first copy this in the notepad. Okay, so this is the response we have received from the server, and this is the token we are sending to the server as part of the login request. So you will see that both the tokens are same, and that is how your server has confirmed this authenticity. Your browser has done it automatically, but we will have to do it manually for the JMeter. So let's go to the JMeter first. Okay, so for the demo purpose, I have already done the recording where this is my landing page URL. This is the URL where I'm sending the username and password. This is the username and this is the password along with the CSRF token. Now this value of the CSRF token is pre-filled, but it is no longer in use because this was the value which was saved when I did my recording. So of course this value is now expired, so we cannot use it. So that is where the concept of correlation comes into the picture. So what we are trying to achieve here is, this is the request. Okay, now whenever we start our load testing, okay, what we want to do is we want to grab the CSRF token from the response of this request, the landing page request, store it somewhere and pass it on to wherever we want. Okay, so to do the connection, JMeter provides the post processor. So there are two things, pre-processors and post processors. What is pre-processor? So if I want to do something before I want to execute my script, this HTTP request, so that part comes under the pre-processor. For example, I want to connect to the database, so that comes under my preprocessor. But what I want to do is I want to grab some value from the response, so that comes under the post processor part. Now we have the HTML response. For that we will add the post processor called regular expression extractor. So if your response is in JSON format, then you can use the JSON extractor. Okay, for this example, we will use regular expression extractor. Okay, this is regular expression extractor. So there are multiple fields defined over here. First is name of the created variable. Then we have regular expression. Then we have match number and default value. Okay, now what we will do, the first thing we have to do is we have to create the regular expression, right? So for that, we have to go back to the response we have received from the server. So this is the format of the response we have got from the server. So by referring this response, we will create our own regular expression. Now to fetch any value from the regular expression, this is the standard template, dot plus and question mark. Dot. Okay, so this is the standard template of fetching any value from the response, but we don't want to fetch any value. We want to fetch a specific value, and that is this particular value. So if you look closely, so after this value we have one quote, then we have ID equals to CSRF token. Okay, and before that value we have quote, we have equal to sign, we have value, and we have some text. So we have to create one pattern that can be used as our regular expression. So let's see how we can do it. So I have already created one regular expression which we can refer. Okay, so this is the regular expression. So if you look closely, I will paste it in the single line. Okay, so if you look closely, instead of this value which we want to fetch, I have provided this snippet, and the pre data and post data, it remains the same. So that is how you create the regular expression. Now JMeter also provides you to check your regular expression. For that you have to go to the one of the listener, that is view result tree. We will talk about view result tree in much detail later on, but just for now please bear with me. Okay, okay, first of all let's do one thing. Let's run this request. I haven't added any regular expression, I do not have anything, and I will run it. This is the demo. Okay, let me run it. And this is, I have opened the view result tree. So you will see all the requests, the response of all the requests capturing in your result tray. Okay, so you can see that this particular request got failed, right? This, because our CSRF token that was not valid. So if you see the response body, so the login is a failure for this case. Now we will add the regular expression and then we will rerun again. So as of now I will, okay, one thing. I was talking about the regular expression and how you can test whether your regular expression is valid or not. So your view result tree listeners allows you to see the response in multiple formats. And one of the format is the regex tester. So this is the regex tester. You copy your regular expression, you paste it over here and you click on the paste button. So what it will do, it will apply this regular expression on this response and whatever the value it will grab, it will be displayed in the result tray, right? So if I click on the test button, so I got two matches, right? This is the first match and this is the second match. So the second match is the response we are expecting. So our regular expression is valid. So we can use it under the extractor. Now I will add again the post processor, that is regular expression extractor. Okay, under regular expression I will paste my regular expression value. Okay, the name of the, you can give any name. For now I'm giving auth token. So this is the variable in which the value of this regular expression will be stored. Okay, so template default, we can put it like this. Now the match number. So you saw that you have total 2 match count. So the index 0, we have this value, but that is not we want. We want the value from index 1. So that is the value we have to provide. Just a second. Okay, so that is the value we have to provide over here, match value, and default value, it is optional, you can provide anything, and save. Now what we can do is we will copy this variable and we will pass it to the CSRF token request parameter. So I will remove the default value and dollar curly braces and my variable. So this is how you do the correlation in JMeter. Now I will run the script again. So as you can see that I will HTML download resources. Okay, so as you can see that my login is passed and I'm successfully redirected to the dashboard page. So this is how we have successfully performed the correlation between two requests. Now the session management or CSRF token link, this is just one example. There can be many examples for correlation. For example, if you are testing the e-commerce website, then you add the product in your cart. Okay, then you go purchasing that product, right? Your browser will do it automatically, but when you will do in the JMeter, you will have to grab that product ID from the response and you will have to pass that product ID everywhere where it is required. So there can be many examples where correlation is required. So this is just one of them. I hope I have cleared this point at a certain extent. So if you have any question, we will address all of your questions in the later part of the session. Okay. Okay, so now we are done with the correlation. Next, okay, next is the parameterization in JMeter. Okay, this is another the crucial concept in performance testing. So the parameterization is the act of creating different data sets for different users in the same script. You are recording your script with one user, okay, but when you end up doing the load testing, you will generate the load of 100 users, right? 100 users you cannot define in your JMeter. Okay, so that has to be parameterized. So each and every user will have its own credentials. So that is where the parameterization comes into the picture. Another example is adding different products in a shopping cart for each user in the same execution. So we will take the same example of e-commerce website. You have created a script of a flow where you add the product and you go to the purchase. Now you want to execute this script for 100 different users. And in the ideal scenario, all 100 users will not end up buying the same product, right? So they will go with the different products, and that's how you make it as real as possible. So for that, what you will do, you will define the product related information somewhere outside of your JMeter, and you will do the parameterization, and that is how your execution will go on. So we'll see how it is done in JMeter. Okay, so we will take the same example of the same example we have used to showcase the correlation. Here we have our login request. Okay, so in login request, you can see that you have the username and you have the password. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to execute this script for 3 or 5 or 10 users. Okay, so for that, there is one config element which is available in JMeter, that is CSV dataset config. Let me remove it first. Okay, so you can find the CSV dataset config by right clicking on thread group, add, then config element, and the first option you will see is CSV dataset config. Okay, so this is the screen of CSV dataset config. First, we will look at the CSV file. It is where.
Sorry to disturb. Can you
Yes.
increase your font in JMeter? It's very small.
Yeah, sure. How I can zoom in? Is it good? I'll try to use the magnifier. Okay, so whenever I'll be on JMeter screen, I'll use the magnifier so you can see it properly. Yeah, thank you for informing. Okay, so what I was talking about, yes, the CSV file. Okay, so this is a CSV file I have used for the parameterization. First column we have for username, second column we have for password. Okay, you can define n number of columns here. Okay, there is no such restriction. The rows are for the data. Like for example, I am running my JMeter script for 3 users. Okay, my thread count which I have defined in my thread group as 3. Okay, then the first user will take this. Let me zoom in a bit. Okay, so the first user will grab the first row, second user will grab the second row, and third user will grab the third row. So that is how the parameterization works in JMeter. So this is the CSV file. We will keep it open. We will go back to JMeter. Okay, so God, it is difficult to use. Okay, so I have CSV dataset config. Okay, so these are the fields of CSV dataset config. We have a file name. So I will talk only about the required fields. Let's not go into that much detail. So we have a file name here. We have variable names. We have this ignore first line, the delimiter, recycle on end of file, and stop thread on end of file, and sharing mode. These are all the options which are available in your CSV dataset config. Okay, so let's start with the first option. The first option is the file name. So you can simply browse the file name. So this is my CSV file. So I can simply browse in. So as simple as that, easy peasy. Okay, next we have variable names. Now you have two options. Whether you can define the variable names here, for example, username, comma, password, or you can define the username in the CSV file itself, right? In the first row. So first row will have username and password. Now, if I go back to JMeter, then I have one option, ignore first line. So if I am providing the variables in the CSV file, then I do not want to use my first line as my data. So in that case, yes, we will ignore the first line. Okay, but for that you have to keep this variable names blank. Keep it as a blank, select the option true, then the variables, the first row will be treated as a variable name. So this will be our variable name and these are the data. This is password is the variable name and these are the data. Understood? Okay. Then we have uh, okay, recycle on end of file. Now for example, okay, now for example, I have I want to do the load testing for 100 users. Okay, that is my requirement. I want to do the users, so I have 100. Okay, and in the CSV file I have credentials of only 50 users, right? So what happens? So if I start running, so the 51st user, what should I do for the 51st user? Okay, so for that these two options becomes helpful. This recycle on end of file. So the moment the execution reaches to the last row of your CSV file, what you want to do with it? You want to end your execution or you want to recycle it? So it will, if I have selected this option as a true, then it will go back to the first row and it will start reading it from the first row itself. So that is the recycle on end of file option. Next we have stop thread on end of file. Okay, so if I select this true, then it will override whatever I have selected for the recycle option. I do not want to continue with the execution once I reaches my CSV file end. Okay, that's where I want to end my execution. It doesn't matter how many users I have defined in my thread group. Okay, so for that you select this option. Now the most important option of CSV dataset config, that is the sharing mode. Sharing mode, here we have three options: all threads, current thread group and current thread. Okay, to understand this, first of all you will have to understand what is a thread. So in JMeter terminology, a thread is your virtual user. A thread is the count which you define under the thread group properties. That we will talk in the later about all the thread group properties that we will discuss later. But consider as a virtual user. So you are generating the load of 100 users. So that means your thread count is 100, right? Now, talking about the sharing mode, first option we have all threads. Now, let's take an example of you have multiple, where is my notepad? Yeah. Okay, so let's say I have multiple CSV dataset configs. So I have added one CSV dataset config. I have added second CSV dataset config. Okay, now this option comes into the picture if both my CSV dataset config points to the same CSV file. So there can be a requirement of using multiple CSV dataset config, but they are pointing to the same CSV file. Right? Okay, for example, you have two different controllers with two different requirements to generate the load. but they point to the same CSV file of reading the username and password. Okay, so if I select the all threads option from the sharing mode, then what will happen? First CSV dataset config will start reading the file. Once it will end, and when the second CSV dataset config will start reading the file, it will do on the continuation basis. It will not start from the beginning. It will start from where the first one has ended. So that is the option all sharing mode. Second option is current thread group. So in this option, the second CSV dataset config will start reading the data from the beginning. Let's say you have 5 CSV dataset config and all are pointing to the same CSV file. Then all the configs will start reading from the beginning. They will not read in the sequential manner. So these two are the most important options. Okay. Now let's start the configuration. So to save the time, I have already done the configuration and will simply read it. So this is my CSV dataset config. I have browsed the file. I have selected all the options, and whatever the parameter name, variable name which I have given in my first row, I will use that parameter variable name in my request parameter. So magnifier, and you can see this txt username. So this is parameterized. You can see this is txt password. So this is also parameterized. And we already saw for the CSRF token, this comes from the lending request response. So this is all configured properly. Now in my CSV file, I have 3 users. Only first one is valid. The second and third user, they are invalid. So we are expecting a failure for user thread 2 and thread 3, right? Okay, so let me define the number of threads as 3, clear it, and start the execution. So the moment you start the execution, you can see one option over here, this green dot button. So here it is saying 3 out of 3. So that means all 3 users are currently active. Now 2 users are active. Now 1 user is active. So once the execution will be over, you will see 0 out of 3. So that indicates that your execution is completed. So yes, your execution is completed. Now we will go to the view result tree where just bear with me. What happened? Okay. Okay, so you can see we have this 3 requests here. This valid credential request here, you can see there is another valid credential request here and the one in the bottom, right? Now you can see only one is passed. Okay, so this one, you can see the response from the server that welcome Paul. So the login is successful. But if I select another 2 valid credential request, then we will see the login page. So that means the login is not happened. But sorry, you can see the green color for those 2 requests. So never confuse yourself with the color indication in view result tree, though it may be showing in the green color, but it is possible that your requests are failed, and for that purpose only it is required and it is mandatory to use the assertions, right? Okay. So we are done with the parameterization. It is very simple, and now we will move ahead. Okay, next we have the JMeter workload. Now here I'm assuming that all the configuration and all the customization and everything is done. Now you are supposed to start the actual load testing. Okay, now for that, first of all, you have to understand what is expected. Whether you are supposed to do the load testing, or you are supposed to do the endurance testing, or stress or spike, because each and every testing type has its own terminology, its own configuration, right? So we will see how we can configure our JMeter script to match up with different performance testing types, right? For that, first we will go to the thread group. First we will understand what is thread group, and then we will see how we can configure it to meet our requirements. Okay, so magnifier, yes. Okay, this is the thread group. Now what is a thread group? Thread group is the control room of your JMeter script, from where all the action happens, right? So all your controllers or your HTTP requests, your listeners, everything that is placed under the thread group, they are all your config elements, everything they are placed under as a child of your thread group, right? So this is the most crucial part, crucial portion of your JMeter script. Here you can define number of virtual users. I can define 100 or 1000, 10,000, whatever your requirement is, what the amount of load you want to generate. So that you can define over here. Right now I am defining my virtual user or thread as 100. Now the second field is the ramp up period. Now ramp up period, okay. Ramp up period is nothing but the amount of time in which you want all of your users to be up and running. Okay, let's go with the example. For example, if I'm giving the ramp up period as 10 seconds, then what will happen? Okay, so your thread is 100. Okay, your thread is 100 and your ramp up is 50 seconds. So when I say ramp up, always consider it in seconds. Okay, so what will happen here? The moment you will start your execution, okay, so within 50 seconds, all your 100 users will start the execution. Okay, so that is the use of ramp up period. People always confuse the ramp up period as your performance test duration. It is not your performance test duration. I'm giving 50 seconds. That doesn't mean that your execution will be completed within 50 seconds. No, that is when your execution will be completed, that entirely depends on how the server responds. We do not have the control over the server, right? What we have control is on the request that we are sending to the server. Okay, so within 50 seconds, all your 100 users. Okay, so let's say with this configuration, I'm starting my execution. Okay, so now I have this many requests under my thread group, the landing page, the login and the logout. Okay, so first user will come. Okay, it will start executing in the descending order. So first it will execute this, then this, then this, then this, in the sequential manner. Okay, then the second user will come, then the third user will come, and then the 100th user will come. But the density of they are coming to execute, that is measured by the ramp up period. So if I have defined, here 5 seconds, so within 5 seconds my all my 100 users will start execution. If I have defined 100 seconds, then each and every second one user will go for the execution. So that is the use of ramp up period. Next, in the thread group, we have the loop count. Okay, so now we'll talk about the loop count. Okay, now let's say your thread count, your virtual user is 100, your ramp up period is 50, and your loop count is 2, for example. Okay, so what will happen? We will talk about the first user out of this 100 users. So first user started his execution. It executed this first request, and sequentially it executed this last request. So the moment he will get the response for this last request, it will go back to the beginning and it will start executing from the first request itself. Now this recycling, that is configured from the loop count. If I am setting the loop count as 5, then this recycling will happen 5 times. If I select, there is also one option of selecting the infinite option. So I do not want to end my execution. I want to keep it running. So for that, I select the infinite option. There are other options as well. Okay, this one option is very interesting. Same user on each iteration. Okay, so if I check this option, now the iteration. What is iteration? So I have kept the loop count as 2. Okay, so the first user will come, it will execute all the requests. That is the first iteration. Then he will go back for the second iteration. Okay, now do you want all your cache and all your cookies to be used for second iteration? If it is yes, then keep this option checked. And if you want that, no, I want the fresh cache and cookies from the server for second iteration, so uncheck this option. Then also we have this specified thread timeline. For example, let's say you are going for the endurance test. Now, what is endurance test? You are maintaining the load on the server for a longer period. For example, for 8 hours, for 10 hours. Sometimes, in some cases, the load is there on the server for 24 to 48 hours. So you cannot you cannot increase the thread count for that, right? So if my 10 lakhs user will use the application. No, it doesn't work like that. You have limited users. The count is 100. You select the loop count as infinite and you specify the duration in seconds. So for this many seconds, this 100 users will do the execution on the server. The moment it reaches the threshold, it will stop the execution. So for the endurance test, this is the duration period is very critical. So that is all for the thread group. Now we have to talk about the NFR. Okay, now that is the non-functional requirement. Whenever you are supposed to do the performance test in your project, usually you will be asked like this is the flow and maximum response time should be 2 seconds. So that is how we are requested to do the performance testing. But ideally it should not be like this. Ideally we should prepare a proper non-functional test plan, okay, in which all the things are mentioned, like what type of testing you want to perform, whether you want to go only for the endurance test or only for the spike test or load test. And based on that, we also have to define the work model. For example, you have 5 functionalities. You have login, then you have dashboard, then you have add product, then you have purchase. But and you have a FAQ page. Let's take that for an example. But not all the pages will share the same load, right? You want your maximum load on the login and on the add card and on the search product. So that is how you have to define your controllers. You can use the throughput controller in that case, and you have to define your thread group to meet your testing requirement. Now let's take the okay, so for this thread group, this default thread group is very useful when you're supposed to do the load test. Now what is load test? I want to check the server response for 100 users and for 100 concurrent users. That is my load test. I can easily do it with this thread group. But what if my requirement is for the spike test? So my requirement is for first 30 minutes, I want 500 users on the server. Then within 2 minutes, I want to increase the load by 1500. Then within 20 minutes, I want to decrease the load. What if you want to design your test like that? So you cannot do it with this default thread group. For that, JMeter provides, JMeter is equipped with the custom thread groups that you can use. So earlier we talked about the JMeter plugin manager. So you can download the custom thread groups from the plugin manager. Go to the option, go to the plugin manager. Here you can search in the available plugins, custom thread. So I have already added, so I will see it in my installed plugin. So this custom thread group option, just download it and you will be able to see. So now whenever you will click on your right click on your test plan and you go to the thread group, you will see all these options. The arrival thread group we have, concurrency thread group, stepping up thread group, and ultimate thread group. Now we will see how we can use this thread group to meet our different types of requirements, right? Okay. Okay, so for that I have already added 4 different thread groups. The first one is for the load testing. Okay, so the first one, that is the ultimate thread group. You can see that this is the ultimate thread group. This is for the load testing. You can use it through the default thread group that we have, and you can also generate the load using this ultimate thread group. Okay, what it is, let's see. Here you can generate the load by adding the row of threads. Okay, in our default thread group, we have only one option to define the thread count. Here I can add as many rows as possible along with all the required parameters like initial delay. I want to generate the load of 100 users, but for the first 5 seconds there should be a delay, and after 5 seconds the user should start execution. So that I can define in the initial delay. Startup time, so this is the ramp up period. This is the hold the load. So this is the holder of JMeter. Hold the load, yeah. Okay. You want to hold the load for, let's say, 1000 seconds. So that also you can define, and you want to shut down within 5 seconds, for example, or you want to shut down gradually. So that you can define in the shutdown time. So whatever you give, your thread group will generate one beautiful graph where in the vertical tab we have number of threads. Here you can see the number of threads against the elapsed time. Okay, so as per our configuration, so we have the 100 threads. So this is the 1000 threads. So we have 1000 threads over here. Initial delay is 500. There is no initial delay. Okay, but the startup time is 500 seconds. So if I go below, so here somewhere here is the 500 seconds. So it will gradually increase the load, and at the 500 second it will be on its peak. Then it will hold the load for 1000 seconds, and then it will start ramping down. So this is how you can configure your load model for the load testing. Now for the endurance testing. For endurance testing, what we want to do is we want to create the load and we want to keep the load on the server for a longer period. So for that, what I can do is I can hold the load option the way I want. So if I give this, then you can see the holding parameter is increased, and that is how your graph is updated. So that is how you can configure it for the endurance test. Next, we have a stress testing. Okay. Now, what is stress testing? In stress testing, we gradually increase the load to the point where your server crashes. Basically, the purpose behind doing the stress testing is to know the threshold point, up to what point your server can bear the load. Okay, so for that I have used the stepping thread group. So this is the stepping thread group, and these are all its configurations. So they are very easy in understanding. So this group will start with 300 users. Okay, so it will start with 300 users. You can see that your top upper limit for your thread or your virtual user is 300, right? First, it will wait for 10 seconds. So you can see that for first 10 seconds, there is no ramping up. Okay. Then what happens? Then start the 20 threads. Then start the 20 threads. So it has started this curve you can see over here. This is the first ramping up of 20 users. Okay. And then add next 20 users every 30 seconds. So we are adding the 20 users every 30 seconds. So that is how these steps are generated. And if I want to stop at any point, okay, then I can give the stop. If I want to hold the load, then I can give that parameter. Based on that, this holding graph will be updated. Then if you want to stop, then you can stop at certain level, and you can gradually stop. So stop the 110 threads every 10 seconds. So you can see that this is how the ramping down is configured. So it is, and this is sky is the limit over here, guys. You can define your load model the way you want based on what your requirement is. The next one is the spike testing. So this is very much self-explanatory. So I have added multiple rows over here. So first is for the 100 threads, then second is for the 50 threads, and third is for the 70 threads. And I have defined my parameters to meet this requirement. So first do the spike, then instant ramp down, then gradually increase the load, then hold it for some time, then gradually ramp down to the nil, then put a delay, and then suddenly increase the load. So that is what happens in the spike testing. So you can use it to configure based on your requirement, right? Okay, so we are done with the JMeter workload model. I'm sure you are having lots and lots of questions. Please believe me, we will handle all of your questions later in the later part of the session. And if we are not able to handle all the questions, then we will respond to all the questions after the workshop. Okay, next we have the reporting. Now, so far what we have seen, we saw what is the JMeter, how we can configure it, how we can record it, uh, how we can customize it based on our requirement, how we can generate, how can we can customize the load model. And now you are done with your load testing execution. That's when comes the reporting part. Okay, JMeter is equipped with a very rich reporting facility. Okay, so in today's session we are going to talk about three listeners. First is view result tree, second is summary report, and third is the aggregate report. Okay, so we have already seen the glimpse of view result tree. Now what is view result tree? So let me go to the view result tree first. Okay, so this is the view result tree. By definition, it shows the result in the form of request and response. So these are all the samples defined over here. Oh, wait, I can no. Okay, so these are all here. You can see all the samples. Okay, this is the request tab. This is the response tab. Okay, this is the request and this is the response. Hope whatever I have drawn, it will go in few seconds. Let's hope. Okay, so this is the request tab and this is the response tab. Now the use of view result tree is only for the debugging purpose. When you are customizing your script, you can use the best out of it. But once your customization is done, please make sure to remove it or disable it from your thread group. Because when you are doing your execution, your view result tree will capture the responses and it will show, and it eats lots of your memory, it eats lots of your RAM. And when you are generating the load of 100 users or 1000 users, that is not the thing you want to do, right? You will end up crashing your JMeter or probably your OS if your load is that much. So disable the view result tree when you are doing the execution. You can compare the request and response. Here, these are the request body, then this is the request header. Okay, so this is the request body, this is the request header, this is the response data, response body and response header. Everything you can compare, and you can also compare it with the browser network tab if you are facing any issue that you can use. View result tree provides multiple formats of results. Okay, so by default it is in the text format. If you want to see the HTML response, then you have HTML downloaded resources. If we select that, then you will see your somewhat like your web page. It will not be exactly like your web page what you see on the browser, but you can use it as a reference and it will tell you something about that page. So you can use that. You can use the JSON format. If your response is in JSON, then you can use the JSON format. You can use multiple testers, the boundary value extractor, CSS selector tester. There are multiple testers available. We earlier in the session we used the regex tester. If your response is in JSON format, then you can use the JSON path tester. it works similar to what we saw for the regex tester. Okay, so this is all about the view result tree. The next I want to talk about is the summary report and the aggregate report. Let me first remove it. Clear. Okay, fine. Okay. Now aggregate report is the extended version of summary report. So we will not discuss about summary report because aggregate report already covers all the fields which are there in the summary report. On the top of that, there are few fields added in the aggregate report. Okay. Now let's start with the aggregate report. Okay, the first column. Okay, now when you are doing the load testing, this is one of the most crucial listener when you are doing the load testing, because you want to keep your eye on the response which you are getting from the server, your which request is doing good, which request is failing, or which request is doing very bad. So all that responses, all that information, you can grab it from the aggregate report. The first thing is the label. So whatever, this is the label, this is the name of the request label. The same thing is defined over here. So the first column is a list of all the requests. Okay. The next column we have samples. Now what is a sample? This request I have, for example, I had run it with the 3 users, right? And my loop count was 1. Okay, so that's why I can see the sample as 3. Now, if I change it, if I change the loop count as 2, then all my requests will be executed 6 times. 3 users, 2 iterations. So you will see the samples as 6. So that is how the sample count is calculated, right? Now we have this average, median, 90%, 95%, minimum, and 99. All these are the response in milliseconds. Okay. Now this particular label was executed 3 times, right? So, and each of the 3 times came up with some response. So if the response is coming from the server, there has to be a response time, right? So the average response time is 1304 milliseconds. So 1.3 seconds is the average response time for this 3 samples for this request. In the similar manner, maximum. So out of this 3, the maximum time was the 1500 milliseconds, and the minimum was 1186 milliseconds, and that creates the average of 1304 seconds. This is very much self-explanatory, so I will not dig much on it. Then we have the error. So if your request is failing, you will see the error count over here. Then, okay, so we will talk about the throughput later. First, let's talk about the 90%, 95%, 99%, and median. Okay, so to showcase, I have created one Excel sheet. Let me go to the Excel sheet. Okay. Now I want each one of you to visualize what I'm saying. Okay. The first column is number of requests. Okay. And the next column is the response time for all that request. So the request 1, request 2, request 3, same way we have in JMeter. This is request 1, this is request 2, this is request 3, right? So this first request, it was responded in 1 second. Second request came back in 2 seconds. Same way, the 38th request came back in 38 seconds. And same for the 100 requests. Easy, right? Now, we will calculate 90%, 95%, 99% and median. Right? Now, what is 90% line? Okay. Now, for that, what we will do, we will sort this response in the descending order. Okay. So we have this sort and we have in descending order, right? So we have this 100 request and the response time of 100th request is 100 seconds. Okay. Now, to calculate the 90% line, what we will do, we will first we will sort in the descending order, then we will remove the top 10% of your request. So these are the top 10%. These are the top 10%, right? So I will simply remove it. Okay. Then the next count, what you get, this is your 90th percentile, is your 90 seconds. This is your 90th percentile count. Now, why do we need it? Let's go back. Okay, now why do we need it? For example, let's assume that you have 100 requests. Okay, now out of 100, all your 95 requests are responded within 5 seconds. But only 5 requests, they are taking 3 or 5 minutes to get response. Now imagine what it will do to your average time in the aggregate report. Your average time will be increased just because of those 5 requests which got delayed due to XYZ reason. Okay, so to get the more accurate data, what we are doing, we are removing the top shelf, top 10% shelf of your response, and the next, this 90 seconds. So this means that 90% of your all the requests are responded within this much amount of time. So that gives you the more accurate data. The same way 95% percentile is calculated, remove top 5%. Okay, then whatever you get here is your 95 percentile count. Same goes for the 99. For example, you have 10 requests. Okay, you are sending 10 requests to the server. Out of 10, your 9 requests are coming within 2 seconds, but one request, it is delayed by some minutes. Okay, so if you remove the response time of that one request, then you get a pretty good response time. So that way, what you are supposed to do, you are supposed to work on that particular request only. So that is the purpose for which this 90 percentile and 95 percentile is calculated. The median is the 50th percentile. So remove the top 50%, and the next count you get is your median count. So you are not, so this is just for the understanding purpose. When you do the load testing, you are not supposed to calculate it like this. But yes, definitely you can grab this data and you can use it to perform the next set of actions after your load testing is completed. Right? Now, at last we have throughput. Okay. Okay. What is throughput? Here you can see that throughput for this first row is 1.6 per second. Here it is 8.6 per minute. Here you have 14.6 per minute. So basically what throughput is the number of requests that are processed or number of requests that are served per unit time. Now this per unit time, it can be in second, it can be in minute, or even it can be in hour. Okay, so higher the throughput, better the capacity of your server. So you can see that for this first request, so 1.6 requests were served per second, but here 8.5 requests were served per minute. So throughput for this request is higher and throughput for this request is lower. So some detail level actions are happening for this request, and that is why it is responding slowly with compared to this first request. And that is how you can calculate the throughput. In some non-functional requirements, there are requirements like we want to achieve this throughput. So your development strategies, your server strategies, your load balancers, your server RAM and everything, your code base, your architecture, everything, it has to be in compliance to serve, to meet that particular throughput. So it is a very important keyword when we are talking about the performance testing. So that is all for the reporting part, and that is the end of my session. And now I am open for the questions. So let me first read the question tray. I am sure there are tons and tons of questions are there. So yeah, so if you have any question, you can simply raise your hand and I'll unmute you and we can talk. Okay, so we have one. Sailesh, I'm not able to unmute. Can you do it? There is Mohammed Zubair.
I'm doing. The Mohammed Zubair and Samir Pota both have asked to unmute. They need to.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes. Hello. Thank you, guys. You are doing a great job. Actually, I didn't understand throughput concept. Can you please repeat it?
Yeah, sure. Okay, let me share my screen again. Okay, so the throughput, I'll go with the definition first. The throughput is the number of requests. Okay, so for this particular sample, that is our landing page. Okay, this is the landing page URL. Okay, and we have executed our landing page for 3 times, right? So the throughput is the calculation. It is the number of all the requests for our case 3. Okay, that are processed, okay, or served per unit time. So when our execution was going on, this particular request was executed within this much amount of time. So that is the throughput. So basically, in short, it is the capacity of your server to request, to serve or to process a particular request. That is what the throughput is. There are some calculations available, there are some equations available to count the throughput, but it is better to understand what it means, what fundamentally what it means. So that is more important. So higher the throughput, okay. So for example, here 1.6 per second. So Zubair, you tell me, which throughput is better? This 1.6 per second is better or 14.6 per minute is better? Which one is better? Now, Zubair, can you hear me? Okay, I guess we have.
I have again unmute him. Now we can speak.
Yes, 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 Zubair.
I
Yeah.
believe
So,
14.6.
but okay. See, do not go with the count. Go with the count per unit time. Here 1.6, that is per second. 1.6 requests executed per second and 14.6 requests executed per minute. So we can clearly say that the throughput of this request is better compared to this one, right? Because within in 1 minute, this request was executed 14.6 times, but here we have 60 seconds in a minute. I hope I'm not wrong. Okay, so within a second there has to be 70, 80 or 90 requests out for this particular request. So the throughput for this request is better. So when we do the load testing, we check the average throughput, the total throughput, which is there in the bottom line, bottom row of the table. And if any, we also keep our eye on the each and every particular request. So if any request is serving with very low throughput, then there is something really wrong with that request and response, and that needs to be checked. So that is what the purpose of throughput. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, hello.
Yes. Who is this?
Yeah, Samir here.
Yeah. Hi, Samir. Yeah.
Yeah, so very nicely explained.
Thank you so much.
I want to know that how we can give report to developers, because when we say this throughput is not as per the expectations, they
Yes.
ask some reports like what is the going on wrong on the server. So for not only throughput, but if we have any failures in our script, or if we have any error marks in our system or in our JMeter script, then is
Yes.
there any log or is there anything that we can provide to developers that you need to update these things in your development?
Okay, that's a wonderful question, Samir. Okay, so whenever you are doing the load testing, so first of all, the load testing should not be generated, should not be initiated from your local machine, unless your local machine is having the excellent configuration, then you can do it. But when you are doing the load testing, then someone from the development team should be available to check your server logs. If Apache is the server, then you can check the Apache logs. So server logs checking should be available at that time. Someone from your infra team should be available to check the CPU usage and all that. And you are there to make sure that your JMeter script is running perfectly fine. Now let's take an example that one of the requests is failed. Okay, so there can be multiple reasons. One of the reason can be your CPU utilization is at a peak, and your CPU has stopped responding. So for that, the infra team guy will get a notification that this is the reason, because of it your execution is failed. And if there is a functional level issue, then there has to be then logs has to be captured at your server level. Then someone from the development team, the one who is maintaining, who is reading the server logs, he must have received some errors in the log, and that's how we can identify it. And yes, through JMeter also we can generate the logs. When we are doing the load testing, we cannot perform the load testing through this JMeter window. Real-time load testing has to be run from the command line. JMeter window is only there to view and to debug. Once you are done with your script, close your JMeter window and start your execution from the command line. So reason behind is you do not want your JMeter to eat up any of your RAM resources or
Right.
anything.
Right.
Right. So yes, logs are available. You can configure logs in your JMeter as well. So once the execution is completed, you get the log files and where all the logs are mentioned. So if the error is from the JMeter, then you get it in the logs. If the error is at the infra level, then you can get it from the infra guy and also from the development guy. So that is how. So it is a collective activity. It's not like we do the manual test. We execute our test case and we create the log. Performance testing has to be done with all the parties connected with each
Yes,
other.
so basically, you know, when we are doing the load testing, the expectation from the management team is like we are going to provide them the report that what things are going wrong, and they will work on that and they will rectify that. So
Yes.
this is a collective efforts.
Yes. So when we start the load testing, okay. So first we will start with the last load. For example, I'm starting with the 100 users. Okay. So you with 100 users, you do the first cycle of load testing. You capture the result. Okay. There is one more thing, JMeter report dashboard. That is an external plugin that you can connect it with your JMeter and which gives you which grabs all the data from your aggregate report and everything, and
Okay.
it showcases it in the beautiful graph format and chart format, so that you can give it to your management. So once you are done with the first round of testing, collect the reports, save it, then you go ahead with the second round of testing, let's say for the 500 users. So for with each and every cycle, each and every iteration, you collect your reports, and then you can create the final report that you are supposed to send to your management.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So just to add in that, you can generate the HTML report via JMeter. You can also use BlazeMeter Sense, which is sense.blazemeter.com. And
Okay.
what you need to do, you need to upload your JTL file over there. It will also create a good HTML report. So you can use either. But as Rishil mentioned, the best practices for performance testing are you should run your load testing script via command line, not with the JMeter UI. And if it's better to use the distributed mode instead of having a single node. If you have like a more number of users, so like 100, 200 is fine. If more than that, you should have distributed that 200 from one machine, 200 from another machine. Otherwise, you won't have that good throughput and you won't get the exit results.
Yeah, so basically, you know, what is the expectation is as we have a view result tree, right? And they are showing the failure message, like sometimes if a bad gateway or 401 or unauthorization. So, you know, the developer expects that if 10 out of 20 requests are failed, then what is the reason to fail? So they expect those reasons from us actually. That why these responses are getting failed and what is the reason, and they can work on those particular reasons.
Yeah, for that, as Rishal already mentioned, it's a joint activity. It's
Yes.
a collective activity between the infra development team and the performance tester.
So basically, we can ask them to keep a log on the server, and once our script is running, they can collect the log and rectify from there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Rishil. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Rishi, there is one more question from my side. So first
Yes.
of all, you have explained very well, and it's a fabulous demonstration over here.
Thank you.
I mean, in the beginning of our session, you have mentioned. I mean, Shailesh has mentioned that we can also record a script with the BlazeMeter. So how much it is advisable to record with the BlazeMeter? I mean, do we get the exact result as per the JMeter script, or
Yes.
I mean,
Yes, it is just another way of recording. There is no much change in that. So you can definitely rely on BlazeMeter plugin. And but yeah, it is always advisable that after you record, you compare all of your HTTP requests then you execute the same flow in your browser. You check the network tab and you compare all your requests, that whatever you have recorded properly or not. So that is the only way to make sure.
Okay. And Rishul, there is one more question that we have used regex, okay, to capture cover the login scenario.
Yes.
So is it always required to use regex to check to test the performance testing? Because
That depends on the format of your response. If your response is in JSON format, then you can use the JSON path extractor. If otherwise, you can use the regex extractor. There are other extractors available as well. That entirely depends on the response of your request.
so the extractor is always required to test the login scenarios, right?
Yes, and not just for the login scenario. Wherever the correlation is required, there has to be an extractor.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. That's it from my side. Rishul.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so do we have anyone else?
Anil, you asked something, but we are actually running out of time. So again, like demoing that thing is not visible. Otherwise, we really would like to just cover that thing as a demo. But if you can try it by yourself and you can connect us.
So yeah, Anil, so just to add to your question, so the concurrency thread group, it is also very self-explanatory. So what is the concurrency? The concurrency is the amount of user that you want on your server at any given time. For example, I want to test the response of my application with the concurrency of 100 users. So that simply means that I want to check how my application is responding if 100 users are doing something, doing some actions on the server at a same given time. So that is what the concurrency is. And concurrency thread group is just another way to achieve your requirement. If you have a concurrency that I want to maintain the concurrency of 500 users, then you can define it under the target concurrency field. Then you have ramp up time. If you want to ramp up in the steps, then also you can define. Then also you have hold the target rate. So all the fields are very self-explanatory. But yeah, you try it by yourself, and if you have any question, you can post it in our WhatsApp group, and we would love to answer that. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.